Perfect. Hello, Gabriel. Hope everything is going okay. I hope that you've read the chat that I've just highlighted through vMix call, and I hope everything is working on your end. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay, and it's working from my end. However, like
Perfect.
everything else, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. So, like everything else, my colleague is she's based in Nigeria, and at the moment, just to get her internet connection to stabilize, because we're we're all on it for a while, and then now she's complaining about that. But I'm ready until she joins us.
Okay. Have you got your presentation available?
Like, yes, got it
Okay. Can you
ready.
share your screen with the presentation, please?
Okay. Just bear with me. Got that. Can you see it?
No, all I can see is your camera at the moment, so hopefully it'll come up in a minute. If not, we'll go to a quick intermission, and please look at the chat
Yeah.
in vMix, and we'll be able to help you get it sorted.
Oh, okay, cool. Will do.
Okay. Can you go to intermission, please, Apollo? Hello, welcome back. Thank you, Gabriel, for getting your presentation up. I know that there's been a few issues in terms of the technical aspects on your end, and I'm very grateful that you've got it up. I am going to have to keep it to time, so in relation to that, I'm going to literally pass it straight over to you now, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear us? All right. Can you hear me? All right, everyone. Hello, my name is Gabriel Atsu Sikanku, and I'm from Esports Africa News, and I'm here sharing this with my colleague um, Kenechukwu Okeke. She's based in Nigeria. At the moment, she's hoping to um, be able to join this presentation because of her internet, and hopefully this should work. This should work all right. So we're going to be presenting on streaming media, fan communities, and audience engagement in esports. So in Africa, and this is where we're trying to grow a sustainable community uh, in Africa based on growing our esports engagement. So the, about esports in in Africa and globally. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? I'm not sure. Right.
Feel free to carry on.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us?
Yeah,
All
we can
right.
hear you. I just have everything on mute, so you're fine. All your audio is fine. Can you please go on?
Okay, cool. So we have been looking at the global esports market as compared to the African esports market. The global esports market is a $1 billion industry, which we are all aware of. But in relation to Africa, it's a bit skewed. Africa has the rapid growth because of the statistics on population and the general audience. It's a youthful audience, and major events, though are not happening on the African continent, have got Africa mentioned in various world events. When we look at the continent as a whole, with 54 countries, we seem to have South Africa as the most mature market, leading in infrastructure, tournament, and player base. We've got the likes of Nigeria, which has got potential to population, youth demographics, and mobile penetration. And then we've got the likes of Ghana, Kenya, Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, emerging as hotspots with active communities and growing local tournaments. So the question we asked ourselves in this research was, how can Africa use streaming, digital media, fan communities for sustainability? And what we found out engaging is that Africa in itself has, according to the statistics, has enough advantage to be able to make this a global thing, because the population about 1.56 billion, very young population, 70% of sub-Saharan African under 30. Internet access is increasing. Though it's increasing, we've got some challenges to that. Mobile reach, Africa is mobile first, so the mobile reach is massive. And the creative economy is also booming, in the sense that with increased mobile reach, young population creativity is is high, and they are sort of leading the market. As part of the research, we looked at uh, ways where some of these study could be conducted, and we undertook the interconnected lenses. We looked at it through the internet connected lenses, and this is where we looked at Africans participating and creating content, which is called the participatory culture or fan co-create, where in this we think fans and audiences kind of consume a lot, especially on TikTok, um, Instagram, X. They engage a lot on the content created by others. But if we spin it around and go for fans as co-creators of value, the theory then moves on to say that instead of just viewing people's content, Africans create their own narrative, and in creating their own narrative, they share memes, montages, and through all WhatsApp groups and social media. The link to sustainability in this is that the participatory energy is a primary source, in that the young people, obviously very creative, very young, very dynamic, are able to create um, content from their daily lives and even use in local languages where they become more comfortable and more used to such content. And with large numbers, especially the likes of Nigeria, you can always be assured of engagement and creativity in there. So then we look at the network society where uh, we are all digital communities, or we are all connected one way or the other digitally. Um, as we know, these days everyone has got a phone and everything is either an app or a text or a face scan. And Africa mobile penetration is increasing, and with that comes the use of smartphones, and with smartphones comes the use of digital connections. And here um, we notice that when we look at the digital maps of Africa, which we call the space of flows, the key nodes are like Discord servers, Twitter hashtags, and streaming platforms. And then, if the hubs where we've got the influencing players do come around to engage in esports. When we look at it through the lens of esports, they do come around to engage with that in esports. The network then forms the infrastructure, and then the sustainable communities within that network. It grows naturally and exponentially because of the kind of community we have, and it becomes a robust and confirmed market if you look at it commercially for products and for engaging commercially. And then we look at the platform as a capitalist, or a framework of capitalist venture, where the streaming platforms like the YouTube, the Twitch, the Kicks are used by these communities, by these individuals, and by the gaming communities to share, create, and earn from it. But we will look in subsequent slides, we'll see how these streaming platforms have now become gatekeepers to the progress of African creatives. So the methodology included interviews across the continent, picking up Google Forms that was shared amongst WhatsApp groups on our social media and other ways of getting data. What we got is that in there we asked them to complete a 21 question challenge, and most respondents were passionate about what they wanted to say. They found it as an opportunity to share their knowledge about Africa. So on platform data, um, it was like the African gaming scene and esports content landscape. It's not a mirror of the West, because even though we see the big tournaments, we see the big engagements, prize pools, and everything else that's happened, it's skewed more to PC games, whereas Africa is mobile first, cost conscious, and community driven ecosystem. No single platform dominates in Africa. You know, entirely in Africa, and they serve complementary functions in the creator economy. So we don't have just PC games or Microsoft Xbox games in Africa. It's such a mixed bag of engagement. The platforms, are dynamic and are heavily influenced by data costs, whereas data is quite expensive in Africa, and they are used on consoles and PCs, and mobile is more influential in Africa than the consoles and the PCs. We also look at the comparative cost studies where we looked at YouTube, Twitch, and Kick, and we look at the content created at the moment by African gamers and esports enthusiasts, the long form, full streaming of match, streaming of matches has become an area of gaining numbers, but increasingly the short form and audience influence or studio presentations have become another way of engagement. In Nigeria, for example, which is one of the busiest markets, we've had a lot of in-house audience engagement in all the major tournaments happening on the continent, which have also become regular. Whereas we look at Twitch as, though it's a primary streaming platform and interacts a lot, where Africans like to chat, like to talk and create convo. So, you know, Twitch has become increasingly interesting platform being used by African creatives. Um, the only challenge there is that it's highly restricted, and it's monetization is the monetization is a bit limited in Africa. When we talk about TikTok, it's one of the most growing platforms for esports gamers, because the content that is being created in there is a short form, vertical video content. It's very fast. People latch onto it quickly. Cost to establish them very minimal. Very not restrictive. Similar to Facebook gaming and stuff like that. But then the question has become that all these other platforms are Western platforms. We don't really have anything that is Afrocentric or connected to Africa, because all the revenue, all the technology is from the West, and we're not able to sometimes, with limited internet engagement and restrictions, we're not able to latch onto these platforms, and which don't help in our visibility. So it has been said that, or questioned, that does Africa then needs its own platform? Does Africa need to use a platform that is more akin to them, with the other hundreds of messages that you know we share, and languages that we share amongst us? How can Africa make it such that it will be a seamless, uh, borderless barrier to using some of these? So in our findings, we looked in our findings we got through that. We did look at low streaming consistency, whereas it's based on the number of consistent stream tournaments over the total tournaments sampled, times 100. That's how we did calculate that. And using this formula, the consistency rate was measured across the data set, showing us about 13%, which is very low, considering the size of Africa. And, you know, it didn't really help with visibility or answer the questions of visibility of Africa. So again, we had various iterations, and we had various iterations and parameters, for gaining this results, where we look at the presence or absence of live stream, number of matches aired versus the schedule, the duration of broadcast windows, platforms used. You know, we look at TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube live to understand how African esports teams were able to reach their audience. Um, when we look at that as well, we found out that low income African streamers sort of had the lowest income from their streams, whereas in Africa it was a range between like 50 to 120 a month, as reported by Meta in their game partner program pilot report. Um, Asia, Philippines were making 300 to 900, 300 to 900 a month, compared to the 50 to 120 in Africa. In Europe, they were even making much more, like 1,200 to 2,500. And this was as reported by the Creators Economic Report, peer pop in 2024. So if you look at these statistics, Africa is lagging way behind in the economic revenue of streaming or creating content. The platforms that we looked at included the TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook gaming, and where we saw that TikTok was great for short form mobile first uh, short form content because Africa was mobile first. It was good for African region. Instagram, the culture, lifestyle, and the real aspect sort of caught up with Africa because of the short. Again, because it's short, sharp, and it doesn't require a lot more resource to do that. So it's easier for people to do that and create their content in a short form and post it. Is Whereas Facebook gaming had early monetization, it helped a lot of people sort of gain interest or potential income from that. As part of that, we also identified the structural barriers, some structural barriers that we're facing in Africa, which was the high mobile cost, which is obviously exchange rate, foreign currency, foreign businesses conducting, providing such services. It makes the data service one of the most expensive around the world. Twitch is one, so we also identify Twitch as a platform that is not familiar to Africa. YouTube, yes. Twitch Kick, no, because the general awareness and the use of it is limited and to the West, and Africans have not really caught up with it. Sometimes it's because they've not Twitch and the cakes have not made the effort to include Africa in their interest groups, advertising, or providing information for. So we try to also look at regional differences in esports across the continent. So we took Ghana, South Africa, and Nigeria as and Kenya as case studies for this. Whereas we saw that in South Africa we had a streaming quality being good. In fairness, they've got good facilities, and when they've done production, has been when they've done production, it's been brilliant. In every sense of it, because at the at the end, South Africa was one of the first countries to be involved in international tournaments. What we are aware is the high cost of data is the one of the biggest challenges, and it's not just South Africa; it cuts across. In terms of strength, they've got the professional standards, you've got the major businesses, major industries playing a role in South Africa. Whereas in Ghana, which is more community led, they are more high, like more related to high viewing, high community engagement in all the tournaments that they've provided. We also looked at Kenya, which has um, more tech oriented businesses. So they come up with the co-working space, gaming cafes, hybrid setups, which include gaming game developers and creatives in hubs, and they are more technically oriented in Kenya, developing the backbone of the esports industry rather than not rather, but in comparison to maybe Nigeria and Ghana, who do more the front end facing of the esports industry.
Perfect. I'm going to interrupt you there, unfortunately, because we are running out of time. And it's something that is obviously a really interesting topic, and I would love to have gotten more into this, but we only have 20 minutes per presentation. And because you connected late, this has been 20 minutes on our end. Gabriel, thank you very much for your contribution. Sorry about all the connection issues in relation to your connection. I know that you worked really hard on this, and I'm sure when we go to it, please feel free to look through the abstract, etc. But we're going to go to a short intermission now because we got our next presenter waiting for us in about 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.